Welcome to the English Homemaker podcast, a podcast where we discuss all things home, a realistic but fresh view of homemaking from the suburbs of the south of England. I am your host, Alissa Evelyn. Welcome to episode 3 of the English Homemaker. Well, hello everyone. How are you? I hope you're having a fabulous day. Today's episode is called Home is Where the Heart Is, and I'm going to be talking to you about cleaning, organising, tidying up your home, and everything to do with house, like renovations, projects, the laundry. I'm going to be touching on a bit of everything, a bit like the last episode to do with food was a bit kind of like a bit about my history, a little bit about where I come from, a few tips thrown in there. It's going to be kind of similar to that today. There's going to be a lot of chat today about mindset to do with cleaning, because I think that's a huge, important part of the whole process of cleaning and tidying your home. And yeah, let's get straight to it. So I think that we should start this episode, or I should, and probably you should, I think it's probably good for everyone to just spend a moment being really grateful for the home that you have, whether it's owned or rented, or you live with your parents, or whatever your situation is, for the space that you have, the spaces you have, your bedrooms, bathrooms, kitchen, outside space if you have some, for the people that live in your home, which is really what makes a home. Just be super grateful for the people, maybe the pets that you have there, and also for the place that you live, for the surrounding area, for the people that live around you, for the community that you have. I think all too often we can get really bogged down in seeing what other people are doing, and we forget how blessed we are to live where we do, to have the spaces that we do, and often we want more or different. And I think we just need to spend more time being grateful for what we have. I feel like there's this huge sense of expectation on a homemaker for the home to be perfect, whether that's a perfect white farmhouse, a perfect English cottage, a perfect Swedish apartment, whatever that is. I feel like there's just this huge sense of expectation that we sort of conform to a way of doing a home, and to have it be this kind of cookie cutter home where everyone's homes are kind of like beige and white and organised in the same way. And I feel like a lot in 2023, the personality, the heart, the soul of a home can get really lost if you keep trying to adhere to that one way of doing things. And I would love for this episode to help you and help me just remember how important it is to infuse a house with a sense of personality and a sense of heart, and a sense that somebody with interests and passions actually lives in this space. Now, that's not to say that a beautiful minimalist home lacks in personality. I don't think that at all. I think a really beautifully organised minimal home can be absolutely stunning. And if that's your thing, go for it. Like, properly go for it. It also doesn't mean that your personality overtakes cleanliness and organisation, because I don't think that's true either. If you have loads and loads of clutter and people can't relax in your home, then that's also not cool. So I think there needs to be a nice balance of tidiness, cleanliness and organisation, whilst letting your personality shine through in the way that you lay out your furniture, the colours of things that you choose, the decor and how you display it, and the pictures you have on your walls. I guess the other part about home and what your home looks like is that I think it's actually an ever-evolving journey. I don't think that many people are at a state of arriving at knowing exactly what they like. And if you have, I am so happy for you. But I feel like it's not a sort of, unless it's our job and we spend all our time doing it, I think most of us are probably just kind of playing and seeing what we like. And I think our tastes change with time and our needs change with time. And so there should be this sort of natural shift in your home of moving things around and taking things out and adding new things in and creating new pieces, and just, I guess, keeping it in flow with the state of your life and what how it needs to function. I guess the other piece to the puzzle is that every time you move into a new home, it's this new dance between you and that house that you're living in and making it into a home that is yours. And I feel like every single time I've moved into a different house, it's been this opportunity to not reinvent myself, but sort of find out more about who I am and how I like to express myself in the home. So I'd say the first space I ever felt like was my space that I could put my print on was actually my bedroom growing up. I think I was probably about 16 and mum was like, oh, you can just do whatever you like to it. And it must have been around my birthday. I might have had some extra money and I decided to do a full renovation on my bedroom and I absolutely loved it. And I had wooden floors and white walls, and it really was the tiniest bedroom, I think, in the whole house, actually. It was a good location. It was in the middle, so it was nice and warm, which was very important. And it had one window. And I don't remember what I put at the window, but I do remember the wood floors, the white walls. And I bought this kind of like box bed that was like a pull-out. I was really trying to optimize the organization of this bedroom so that I could fit more in, and it was functional. And I don't really remember hugely thinking it all through, but I just remember having this creative idea and absolutely needing to do it. I'd probably been flipping through IKEA catalogues. Anyway, so I had found this box bed and I found this beautiful pink kind of like textured fabric spread to go over the top of it when I wasn't sleeping in it. And then when I was, obviously I would open it up and pull it out, and it was just this really tiny, minuscule little camp bed thing that was probably not hugely comfortable, but my back still worked, so it wasn't awful. And I'd chosen really beautiful IKEA like floral duvet covers and a little kind of rug, which actually I still have, which is everything in that room was that kind of like IKEA pink and green check. So I had like the pillows to match the little rag rug kind of thing, and it was just so beautiful. Everything was like pink and green and white. And then at the very end of my room, I did this kind of like really tall wardrobe, like open wardrobe, open shelving thing. Everything was white, and I just sort of got wood shelves and then a bar for my clothes. And I got some really lovely matching green boxes, which again, I still have those. Are still in top functioning quality, good old IKEA. And then I redid the whole space. I painted things. I really like stamped all of my love into that room. And I still remember exactly how it looks if I shut my eyes. And the feeling I got when I walked into there, I felt so creative and refreshed and inspired, and very much like it was me. And I think that feeling kind of always went with me. A lot of those things went with me to university, although obviously I couldn't do many things to my room at university. And actually I probably experimented a bit when I was there. I just put a few posters on the wall. I was never really a poster person, but I did put posters on the wall there. And I don't remember much else about it. I remember taking lots of pink utensils, but that's about all that was like a bit of me in the space that I was in. And then when I got married, I moved into the house that my husband had already purchased. It was a lovely house built in the late 1800s, and I do believe it was right next to the strawberry fields where they grew the strawberries for the Titanic. So it was a kind of like old farmhouse kind of feel to it, and just like lovely tall ceilings, and it was quite small. It was like a 2-bed, but the rooms were relatively generous because they were 1800s built. And yeah, it was a lovely, lovely house. We did a few renovation projects there. We redid the kitchen and we redid the bathroom before we sold that house. And we definitely put our stamp on it, but it was always a bit complicated because my husband had bought it and he'd already kind of furnished it before I got there. We never really got the chance to kind of make it ours, if that makes sense. It was always like me sort of putting a little bit of me in it, but it was mostly his choices of the furniture. To be fair, we still own loads of the furniture that he chose that I didn't choose with him. And I always find that a bit of a challenge. I mean, eventually over time, all of those things will change. We've been married for almost 11 years now. And I guess that's just the joy of buying good quality furniture. But then it also means that when you're making decisions, you need to make sure that it's something that you know you're going to like for a really long time. Then when we moved to Belgium, basically we kind of packed up all of the stuff that we had. We moved into a townhouse, and the way that the Belgian townhouse worked was that it was quite narrow, but many floors. So I think there were 4 floors, and the bottom of which was like the garage and the laundry room. And then there were just so many stairs in that house. And then it was like one big open plan living area, and then a sleeping area, and then the guest area above that. But it was about twice the size, I think, of the house before, or it felt that way because it just had more bedrooms. Obviously, we had our son in that home, and that will always be such a special house to me. It was wonderful because of its location, and that made it incredibly special because it was very functional for everybody to visit, and it was filled with so much joy, and that made it a very unique and memorable home. And then the house that we're living in now is a house that was built about 28 years ago, and it's in the suburbs. It's very cookie cutter, and it doesn't have a lot of its own personality or charm because everything was kind of made to a standard and all exactly the same. So we are trying our best to put some personality and charm back in this house, not back in this house, into the house in the first place, and just make it a bit more interesting and a bit higher quality as well, and a bit more longer lasting. We chose the house pretty much solely on its location. It's close to a good school, it's within cycling distance of my husband's work, and it's next to a really lovely big green space. It is definitely surrounded by many more trees than we were before, which is really lovely, and we have this really stunning oak tree in the back garden, which we absolutely love watching change over the seasons. But yeah, when you buy a house, they are invariably not perfect and not exactly as you would like them. And this house, no one had done anything to it, I think, for the 25 years it had been in existence. I don't think anyone had really updated anything, so it has been our job to do that. And I don't know about you, but I do find making all those decisions extremely tiring, mostly because I feel like, not that it's sort of petty, nor that it's a waste of money, because I feel like obviously home ownership and investing in your house is always a good investment. But I just find, I guess maybe it's not my absolute passion and I'm not brilliant at it. I get worried I'm going to make the wrong decisions and spend money on something and get it wrong. And I just really hate wasting money. I also hate wasting time, and time is so precious, and not just our time, but the time of electricians and painters and plumbers. So the house that we live in is pretty mismatched. It's got some of Pete's old stuff in it. It's got some of my stuff in it. It's got things I've bought in charity shops. It's got things I've made. It's got things we've bought at IKEA. It's got lots of colour and lots of texture in it. It's got wooden floors. It's got some really old carpets that need updating. There's loads of things that we still need to do on this house, but there's lots of projects that we have done. There's lots of light fixtures we've changed, lots of switches. There's some painting that we've done, a few bathrooms that we've updated. There's a few we've done fences outside, very excitingly. We've done lots to the garden to add colour and interest. And I would say other people that come into our home do feel cosy and welcomed and happy here, or I hope so. We love to host people, whether they're staying overnight or they're just coming for lunch. And even the other day I had my lovely friend Sue, she came for lunch, and I just thought I'd make like a proper deal about it. So I spent all morning making a really lovely kind of like grazing lunch and a little sweet treat for afterwards, and I laid the table, and we sort of like sat out in the garden for a bit, and it was very chill and relaxing because I'd put a bit of work in on the back end, and she's such a lovely lady that it didn't matter if I didn't go around like cleaning the house like a crazy person. She's very chill, so it was just, I knew she'd enjoy the food more than she would whether my house was, as long as the house wasn't smelly. I keep the house at like an okay standard all the time, so it wasn't like, and I probably put the vacuum round for like 5 minutes before she came. But yeah, I didn't like obsessively clean. I spent most of the morning making the food because most of the time when people come, I want them to remember that they ate good food and they were well nourished in my house. That's more important to me. There is this delicate balance, isn't there, with homes of not doing so much work that it actually distracts you from actually living your life because you're so obsessed with making sure everything's clean and put away, and then actually making sure things are like clean and put away to a level where it's not gross. There's this kind of like balance that you need to meet, which I think we all have like a different line in our head of what clean looks like, and a different understanding of what that means. I find for me that the best way of knowing if I'm doing enough or not enough is knowing where the kind of like shame, pride situation is lying. So if I'm feeling ashamed of my home, I'm probably not doing enough work. And if I'm feeling really proud of my home, I'm probably doing too much work. And those are really good indicators. There should be this sort of humility balance, that somewhere in the middle, that you are working every day towards creating a home that is clean and tidy and well organized, and you're working towards that, but you're not working so hard that you forget that there are people in your home, including yourself, that are really, really important to look after, as well as the house itself. Progress, not perfection, as cliche as that little hashtag is so important to remember when it comes to the home, to cleaning, to organising, to home styling. Just progress, not perfection. And I really hold on to that so tightly, because there is not really one spot in my home. There might be a couple of little spots where I'm happy to take a photograph and feel like it looks kind of pretty and I quite like it. But there's more places where there's something I feel ashamed of, or that I don't feel like it represents me or something like that. But it is about the progress. It's not about how perfect it looks. My house is about the fact that my kids come home and they want to spend time here. They know where the colouring things are. They know where the paints are and the paint brushes. They know where the Play-Doh box is, and they know how to help me around the kitchen and where things are in the kitchen, how to get the milk out, where the little moo pop toppers for the pint jars are, and they know where the little step is if they need to reach something. And it's really more about the feeling of the home and how it functions rather than how it looks. One of the areas I struggle with the most in the home is the cleaning, and that is because I was just never taught how to clean. If only they would teach that in schools. I just never knew how, so I've been kind of making it up myself. I've also been on this journey of trying to use natural cleaners. There is a lovely lady on YouTube called Scandish Home who I've watched and learned loads from, but I think a lot of it just is not instinctual for me, and I find it really, really challenging. I have been blessed a couple of times with kids. We've had a cleaner a couple of times. So we had 3 months of a cleaner when my son was about 1.5, and then the same when my daughter was 1.5. We had a cleaner for about a year, and she would come every other week. And just to have a little bit of a break from the cleaning when the kids are little and there are so many bugs in the house, and I find that all very stressful, was very, very lovely. I'm now doing all the cleaning myself and not doing a beautiful job of it. And I would love to find a system that works really, really well for me. In the Homemaker Chic podcast, they recently recommended the Shaye method, which is a book which I bought, hugely #influenced, and we'll go through. It's the kind of idea that you write down all of the jobs in the house that you need to do throughout the whole year, throughout the week, throughout the month, throughout the year, and put them on cards, and then you kind of like work your way through them. And I love that idea so much. So I'm going to read the book properly and work out all the jobs I need to do. So then, because every day there are jobs I need to do, there are certain ones that I do have assigned to the week. But instead of those being cleaning jobs, usually they're more like my homemaker tasks. Like I do the budget on a Thursday, and on a Tuesday I try and do the ironing and change the sheets and things like that. But I don't have all of the cleaning jobs assigned to a day, and I think it would be a lot less stressful if I did it that way, and also could then move the cards around if I needed to, for example. I would love to know what methods you guys use for the cleaning. I am generally a kind of as and when person, and when there are people coming to visit, I definitely do a big tidy up, but I don't always do a huge clean. I love hoovering, especially since I got a cordless vacuum. That was absolutely life-changing, because then it just, that little bit of faff of plugging it in was removed, and then I just sort of like hoover whenever I fancy. So yeah, cleaning just is not my forte. I probably have quite a lot of shame about the fact I don't really know how to clean, and I'm kind of making it up. But yeah, I'd like to just get better and a bit more organised about things. So hopefully you will hear me talk about how I've come into this new world of like cleaning everything beautifully and knowing how to do it without being stressed by it. But maybe it's an ever-evolving journey, and whilst there are kids in the house and meals to make and lots of other things to do, it still won't be like the top thing on my priority list, and that's okay. On the other hand, organising stuff is my thing. I'm not particularly good at it. I wouldn't claim to be great at it, but I do really, really enjoy it. And I love nothing more than taking everything out of somewhere, throwing a load of stuff out and putting it all back in like organised boxes. There is something absolutely thrilling about that I really, really love, and especially when I've really thought it through so that I don't ever have to do it again. So I recently overhauled one of the sections of the kitchen, which is sort of like where all the packaged stuff was going, but it was not at all organised. It was just sort of all shoved in there, and I had have no idea what was at the back. And it was not in any real organisation. I'd taken a few things out and put them in jars and put labels on, but not everything. And so I measured the space with an actual tape measure. I went on the IKEA website and worked out what would fit in that exact space. And thankfully there were these 2 boxes. They're called knacklig boxes. They're wooden boxes that you had to screw together, 8 screws in each box. The kids absolutely loved doing that with me. And 2 of them fit exactly side by side with hardly any gap, which was like wonderful. And so, yeah, I took everything out of that space. I threw out probably about 1/10 of it that was a bit out of date, or I knew I was just never really going to use. I worked out what was in packets that really needed to be decanted into jars and put a label on. So there were a couple of things I did that with, but most things already had that done to them. And then I just have like a section now for pasta. I have a section for like all the Japanese things that we've got. And then I've got a couple, like a condiments section, and then a kind of random bits box. And then I have all of the muesli, granola, oats, all the different kinds of rice that we have at the very front. And it looks so pretty, and it gives me huge amounts of joy and makes life worth living, and it makes the whole experience of cooking so much better. So when I went on that IKEA trip and I got those knacklig boxes, I also got these John Axel kind of shelf units. They're like a mesh drawer unit, I guess is the thing to call them, to go in our wardrobes. So we're looking at redoing our bedroom, but in order to redo the bedroom we needed to find space to put our socks and underwear, which was sort of like, we've got this built around cabinet around our bed, kind of like really old school. It functions very well, it's a very functional sort of thing, but I just would like it to look a little bit more modern in there. So in order to do that we needed to move all the socks and underwear into our drawers, and the way to do that was to free up that really like unused random bit of space, which is the floor. And so we've got these drawers, one in each drawer, one in each wardrobe, and they look really, really nice and they function so well. I was able to basically take everything off both of our wardrobe floors and reorganize it all, and now it functions so much better. I also bought some new hangers because the pretty wooden boomerang ones from IKEA are just really pretty and look so much better in the wardrobe when it sort of like all looks the same. I kind of like that look. And also got some new drinking glasses, the like little French looking ones. I actually can't remember what they're called, from IKEA, but I could stack a couple of them together. We'd got to the situation in our kitchen, everything pretty much mismatches. We've got a little bit of a set of like crockery, so like plates and bowls that kind of match, but then the majority are kind of like this red or blue patterned ceramic kind of situation where everything is completely mismatched. Now, I feel like that's like kind of cool on the table, although I would like to get more of the same set of the matching, but it seems to be so expensive to find pieces to add to the set on eBay. So it's been a very slow progress on that one. But all the glasses ended up being mismatched, and I just looked at them one day and I was just like, do you know, if they were all the same, it would just look so much better on the table if all of the glasses matched at least. And also we got to this point where both kids would want one particular glass. And I would be going through like, do you want this one? Do you want this one? Do you want this one? Like pulling them out of the cupboard to show them which glass, and they'd be shaking their head, no, until I got to the one glass which was their like particular favourite of that day. And I just thought as well, I would save myself all of that time of deciding which was their favourite glass, and by having them all exactly the same. So I went and I have put them all in a box in the garage to deal with another day, and just replaced them all with new ones. That it cost me about £16 to get a load more glasses. I've got some bigger ones and some smaller ones, but they all are kind of the same style. And it's just been so lovely. That looks so much prettier on the table, and no one has asked me for a particular kind of glass, which is lovely. And then the only other thing I bought at IKEA, which was like magic that I didn't buy anything that wasn't on my list. I was very like focused when I went in. The only other thing I bought was a stainless steel pan, because we have got one from IKEA that we really, really like, and I feel like it's going to last for such a long time. So I bought the slightly smaller version of that one so we could get rid of some of the old. We've got some really old pans in the cupboard that have got like a kind of non-stick coating on that's been really chipped, which I'm pretty sure at this point is very unhealthy for everybody. So that's also gone out in the garage and will probably get put in like some kind of recycling system somewhere. And now we have two beautiful stainless steel pans that match and can stack, and that's a lot like more clean and functional. One of the other recent purchases that we've had to the house are new blackout blinds. So we've got these kind of like honeycomb perfect fit blinds, and they are not the like prettiest thing that you've ever seen, but they're also not the most ugly. They're just very, very neutral. They function extremely well. And we're just, where this house is a relatively new house, they don't really build houses these days thinking about where the light is and what the heat situation is, because we've got central heating, so it doesn't matter about heat loss as much. People don't think about that as much. Hopefully in the future that will come back and people will think, you know, making a house in alignment with nature and the sun might actually be quite a good idea. But this house is not like that. So the sun goes down on the side of the house where the kids' bedrooms are and where the sitting room is. So in the summer months it gets extremely hot in there, and also it gets extremely, extremely light early and late. So we bought these blackout blinds that are so much more effective than what we had before, but for like a long time we were just dealing with kind of like blackout curtains from IKEA, which we still have as well on top of the blackout blinds, and it functions so much better. And I feel like, I think it was like about £180 for a set for kind of like a small window, and I feel like it will be worth the value on the basis of the fact that the kids will sleep more in the summertime, and that is, I feel like that's almost priceless, but for £180 it's pretty good. We also replaced the lawnmower blade. That happened really soon. I'd never seen a lawnmower blade get beat up quite like that, but I've also never thought to change a lawnmower blade before in my whole life. And I am growing up and I'm becoming a grown-up because I purchased the lawnmower blade. All you actually have to do is unscrew a screw, take the old blade out, put the new blade in and screw the screw back on. It's one of those like super easy things that probably I need to do every year, because whilst there are kids, there are going to be like random things on the lawn, like little stones, because they've happened to put them there, and then the blade gets beat up. And then the other thing that I've done this season is to update my wardrobe. When I update my wardrobe, I've kind of like switched it over. So I keep my spring and summer clothes in boxes during winter, and then vice versa in the summertime. So I put all my winter things away and took all my spring things out, and it just feels so much better. I have got videos of me doing that on my YouTube channel at Alissa Evelyn, and I just love that process. I think it's just really, really important thing to do, just to keep things fresh, make sure you're enjoying the things that you're wearing and not get bored of everything, and remember things that you have in the deepest, darkest depths of your wardrobe. And every single time I do it, it becomes more streamlined. I learn a bit more about what I like, and I'm therefore not like pulling things out that make me sad, because I really like everything that's in my wardrobe. And what quite happens quite a lot is that I like sort of switch over my wardrobe, and then I'll be pulling things I haven't seen for a few months and putting them on and realizing I just don't really like them anymore. And then I end up taking a big load of things to a charity shop. And it's just lovely to see how things evolve, and how through the years there's fewer and fewer things that I get rid of, and I know more exactly what colours I like and what suits me and what textures and fabrics and things like that and patterns. And that's super duper important to me, and that it functions well, and I can reach in my wardrobe when I'm extremely tired and have just got out of bed and need to get the kids to school, and I know I can reach in there and I won't look like super stupid by the things I pick out, and they will look like me, and that they're all the right way around and mended properly. This is probably a good point to tell you that about 90 to 95% of my wardrobe is secondhand from charity shops, and I do that for a few reasons. One, it's much cheaper. Two, it allows me a load of creativity, because in charity shops you've got vintage things, you've got retro things, you've got current things, you've got things from all sorts of different kinds of stores, and you can just try them out for not very much money, which I absolutely love to do, and it's really helped me hone my style and what I really enjoy wearing. And then the third one is it's just a lot more sustainable than buying new. I think greenhouse gas emissions, it's probably like 8 to 10% of greenhouse gas emissions come from the creation of new fabrics, and specifically fabrics that are man-made fabrics. So I really do try and buy secondhand, but for all of those three reasons. I feel like I've just touched on something there that's really, really important, especially in 2023. And that is zero waste living, zero waste home, being conscious of our consumption overall, our consumption of plastics, our consumption of things that are going to harm our world in the long term. And I feel like there are a few areas that I do really well at this in, but there's a load of stuff I could convict myself completely over, and that I am really, really bad at. And I feel like this is another one of those things I think we can beat ourselves up about as homemakers, because it's impossible to be perfect at it. And I feel like we can take small steps forward and a million steps back. And the more we learn, the more sort of scary and terrifying it can all be and feel and seem. And what kind of world are we going to leave for our children? And I feel like it can get too much. And I feel like you just need to take the steps that you can take if you have the opportunity to take them. I feel like there's a lot of things, especially in current media, that would tell you need to buy new things or spend more money in order to live that way, which I just don't feel like is true. And I do feel like every small thing that you can do is helpful, whether you choose today to put your washing outside on the line instead of in the dryer, and whether you choose today to reuse jars or ask your friends for reused jars to make your own jam instead of buying a new jar. All those teeny tiny things are going to be helpful, and that's how I'm choosing to look at it in 2023. I think especially when you have little children, it can be overwhelming. And I think everyone just needs to take a nice deep breath, do what they can, and try not to stress about it, because actually that's just going to be worse for everybody in the long term if you're worrying so much about it. I always keep in mind that quote from Anne-Marie Bonneau, which is, we don't need a handful of people doing zero waste perfectly. We need millions of people doing it imperfectly. And I feel very happy to be one of those imperfect people who's just trying to do things when they remember, when they can, and when they can afford to, and not getting dragged into everything needing to be super perfect. One of the things I find really helpful is having a book, so that when I'm feeling kind of overwhelmed and like I need to do something, that I've got something that anchors me, that's hard and tangible and full of information. And the book that I love the most for this is Zero Waste Home, The Ultimate Guide to Simplifying Your Life by Bea Johnson. I have a lovely reused copy, and I don't flick through it all the time, but if ever I'm feeling like I need to do something, like I want to make a little bit of a change towards something greater, or one of my children comes home, usually my son, having done something at school about helping the environment, then we can look through this book and think about if there's a change that we could make, a way that we could improve the way that we do things on a daily basis. And yeah, I just like having a book for that, because if you open up your phone and you Google zero waste tips, you're going to get back into overwhelm. And I feel like this book is a good way of centering you. One of the biggest decisions we've come to over the last sort of 5 to 10 years as a couple and as a family is making sure that we're always buying the best quality we can, because we feel like that's one of the best things that we can do to reduce our waste. So if we were to say, for example, and I mentioned this in the last episode all about our toaster, if you buy like a really cheap toaster that costs, I don't know, a tenner, you can probably buy a toaster for a tenner. It's probably not going to last forever, but if you put the money in the back end and you buy a toaster that you can fix up and should last your entire life, then you have probably saved money in the long term, but you've also saved the planet a whole probably like 20 new toasters gone in landfill. We also try our hardest to make sure that when we are purchasing things, that they are necessary purchases and they're really thought through purchases, that they're, you know, things that are definitely going to get used and enjoyed, and they're needed, and they're also, as mentioned, of good quality. And we had this conversation about 3 years ago on this long walk, and it was a hugely memorable moment for me because I was having this big crisis about buying a pair of pants. I was in need of new knickers and feeling super overwhelmed by all the media at the time to make sure I bought some that were really sustainable. And I was just kind of in this like mystery moment of knowing, do I spend £25 on one pair of sustainably made pants? Or do I try and figure out how I'm supposed to make my own, which at the time I had a small baby, it was COVID, everything was a lot at the time. Or do I go to Marks and Spencer's and buy a multi-pack like everybody else in England, which would probably cost me less than £25 for five pairs of knickers? And we had this long conversation and we just sort of ended up on, do you know, if they last the same amount of time and they're all made of cotton that's just going to biodegrade, go to Marks and Spencer's. Now, the thing that was the funny thing about that conversation is that the conversation about knickers and the state of the world lasted probably about 2 hours. And that just took that long to work out how we both felt about it, so we could come to kind of a joint decision, not just about knickers. It wasn't just about knickers. It was about how are we supposed to make these decisions going forward? What do we agree on as a family? How do we want to teach our children this? And it all centered around pants. And now these days I can actually make my own pants. I have a sewing machine, which I've had since I was 16, and a lovely friend nearby taught me her special, unique way. I went over there for about 4 hours one morning and we made a pair of pants out of some old cotton t-shirts. And it's so easy, but it takes some time and you have to have fabric. I do think it's really important if you're living with somebody else, whether that's a spouse or a partner, your children, your family. I think it's really important to keep having conversations about your priorities and expectations when it comes to things like zero waste living, but also things like the tidying, the cleaning, who's doing them, how people can help you if you're the main homemaker, and just keep having conversations about it, because there's nothing more irritating than someone saying, oh, I expected you to do that, and you saying, well, but you didn't tell me. So I think making space to have those difficult conversations, sometimes difficult, the more you have them, the less difficult they will be, because the more you'll understand what the expectations are, and the more you can also align what's actually realistic. This is especially important to do regularly if you are the mother of young children and babies. It is a time where your house is not going to be perfect, so don't think that it should be. And just let that one go. The idea of a perfect home is just not going to happen for a while, and that's okay. Don't expect, if people come into your house and expect it to be perfect when you've got young children, they need realigning, not you. The other major thing that if you haven't learned it yet, this would be a good time to learn how to ask for help, because I feel like prior to having children, it's really easy to be self-sufficient, and then when you have kids, it really does take a village to raise a child. Majorly cliche, but so important. But that starts with you asking for help. People aren't going to notice. It's 2023. Unless you are literally screaming from the rooftops, people don't always think about other people. You are going to need to be the one that says, "Hi, I need your help today. Could you maybe come for an hour and sit with my kids so I can do my dishes and put my laundry out?" Or, "Hi, I really need you to come so I can have a nap. Can you just sit with the kids for a bit?" I would love if it became more normal for people to do that for each other. And I know it does in some cultures around the world, in some families. I think that's a really normal thing to happen. But I don't think that exists in the England that I live in at the moment. I think we pride ourselves on our self-sufficiency, and that has such major pitfalls, especially for mothers and homemakers. Well, that got awfully serious, didn't it? I do think those things are very, very important, though. Probably not so much. The thing about zero waste living is sort of mildly important, but the thing about asking for help is super important. And I don't think you even need to only have like babies or small children in order to ask for help. I think everyone should ask for help if they need it. So moving on, I want to talk a bit about homes that inspire me to be a better homemaker. And the first one that I can think of is actually my Farmore and Farfar's home. My grandparents, they live in England, but their house is always very Swedish to me because my grandmother is Swedish. And it has always been one of the most relaxing places for me to go. It is always the most inspiring. And my husband and I had a very long chat. Obviously, we seem to be having quite a lot of those in the last few years. I think maybe everyone has since COVID had loads of deep chats. I don't think it's just us. But we had this long chat about why we find that space so relaxing. And I think it boils down to a few things, not least because there's always food in the fridge. There's always food. There's always a meal to be made for you if you show up. And also there's always going to be a hug. There's also always, it's a very relaxing, restful space because it's quite a quiet place. There's not loads of noise. There's not lots of craziness running around. There's always a spot to sit in and read a book in silence. And there's always a lovely garden. But the main thing that we both came up with that we find the most relaxing about it is that it's not very cluttered space. There's a place for everything and everything in its place. And we have sort of decided that that's our kind of next goal in our house, is to find a place for everything and everything in its place, which I have obviously mentioned earlier in the podcast about the things I bought from IKEA and the way that we're moving forwards in organising the home. So I have purchased a couple of things in order to move forwards with that sort of theory or practice, finding a place for everything. So our broom used to live in a corner of a room. It's a lovely old red broom. And by lovely, I mean it's made of plastic. It's lasted forever and it still works. But it was just hanging out in the corner of a room. And you can buy command broom grippers. So it just sticks to the back of our door in our kind of utility area. So I can't see it now and it's stuck there. Whenever I need it, I can get it out. It means my smallest isn't going to ride it around like a witch's broom and just poke people in the face with it whenever she likes, because it's hidden away and it has a place. And do you know what? There's something so wonderful about that £5 probably that I spent on that little broom gripper. Just gives me great joy. Similarly, I bought recently an organizer for my little threads. They're called floss, aren't they? And little embroidery floss threads. And I have spent a couple of evenings just wrapping floss around little bits of cardboard so that next time I go to mend something, then I can find the exact floss I need and it's not all in a tangle because I've just spent 2 evenings taking out all of the tangles. I do feel like finding a place for everything is going to take a long time, but things like that make me feel like I'm winning. There are a few Instagrammers that I do appreciate and for their home design, home decor, and they all happen to be Swedish, but a bit like with the food related ones, I don't follow that many because I want to find out for myself what I actually like. I don't want to be so heavily influenced that it looks like I'm copying someone else. So I want to try and think for myself what I like, and the best thing and best way to do that I know is to not look at too many other people's ideas. So I will leave links to the people I like on Instagram in my show notes so you can go and check those out. There's a quote in Radical Homemakers that is, the idea of an outfitted kitchen or the correct sort of family room that comes from this suburban model that is about other people making things for you and telling you what you need. I love that quote because it just says, don't be told by TV or social media or the radio or things you see outside of your home, magazines, what you need for your home, how it should be laid out, what you should be having in there, what size your fridge should be, what colour, what you don't need to follow the trends. You don't need to follow even what's available in the shops necessarily in the same way that they want to sell it to you. You don't need to copy an IKEA kitchen exactly. You need to think about what you need for yourself, for your life, what's most practical. Sometimes the things in the shop are what is most practical, what's most up to date, what's most modern, the convenience options that we have, but you don't need to follow those. You can blaze your own path. And like I said, I'm really trying to think about what I actually like. How do I actually want to live? What are my goals with my home? How do I want it to feel? And that kind of almost seamlessly leads me into recommending The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying by Marie Kondo, which you can almost certainly find in your local library if you don't want to pick up your own copy. I have found it really, really helpful to reference, to work out how is a good way to fold things. But also, I love her method of taking everything out and only putting things back that you want to keep. I found that helpful with tidying my closet, with tidying my kids' playroom, with tidying cupboards in the kitchen. It always works every single time. But I really like the way that she talks about homes, and I think it's a lovely idea to think about if everything has its place and it's pretty much always tidy and you always put things back where they should go, then there's no reason ever to spend much time tidying at all because it should always be where it needs to be. One of my favourite people in the world who I have not had the pleasure to meet but would love to one day is Dara Dubonnet. I've been watching her on YouTube for years. She comes and she goes and she's back again at the minute. And she talks a lot about decluttering. And in one of her recent videos, she mentioned that perfection is boring, that things that are mismatching are charming and full of soul. And I completely feel that way. I don't want a perfect home. I want things to be charming and full of soul. And I want there to be life in this house. I don't want it to be sterile and perfectly clean, although I am putting all of my hope in the book Sidetracked Home Executives and my little 3x5 index card box, which I am really looking forward to making in the next couple of weeks. But my idea of a home isn't a perfect, sterile, super clean, very organised home. It is a home filled with love and smells of food and the smell of essential oils, having cleaned my floors, and great music on the music players and people humming around and life in the garden. And I just want it to be a place that is alive and happy. So I feel like that would be a good place to end this episode. I feel like I've got across a lot of information about my home in terms of how I feel about it, where I'm at with things. And in future episodes, I hope every single episode to tell you a little bit about progress. I hope to do a full episode all about the Sidetracked Home Executives method with the cards, although that might make a good video instead of episode, because then I can actually physically show you what's going on. I have also been sharing a few things over on my stories at the English Homemaker, including a really cute video of my daughter trying to wind bobbins the other day. That was so sweet. And there's various different posts with different information that I hope you'll find really helpful. If you are enjoying this podcast and you want to see it continue, there are two great things you can do for me, which is first, to leave a review on iTunes. Thank you for the people that have already done so. And second is to share it with a friend, your sister, your partner, a mum at the school gate. Email the link to your pen pal, share it on your Facebook or your Instagram. I want to say a huge thank you to everybody that has already done so. It really helps spread this message of a positive, happy homemaking experience, and I just really hope we can encourage women from all over the world. When I'm looking at statistics for this podcast, there's not that many things I can see. I can see how many times someone's downloaded it, on what platform they've downloaded it, but I can also see what country you've downloaded it from. And it's so amazing to see people from Singapore, Slovenia, Germany, Sweden, Canada, the US, and of course the UK have all downloaded episodes of the English Homemaker. And I find that so exciting and encouraging already. And I'm just really excited about future episodes. I really hope this was a good one. I hope you found it encouraging and uplifting and you got some new ideas. I hope you go into the rest of your day with joy and happiness and a smiley face. Thank you for spending this time with me, and I look forward to future episodes with you. Bye.